urgent. Shocking revelation about Joe Biden leaves everyone perplexed. A shocking revelation about President Joe Biden is shaking the political structures and leaving the entire country perplexed. The exact details of this revelation are still emerging, but the initial impact is already felt in every corner of the United States. What exactly has been revealed about Biden to cause such a shock? See everything now.
Democrats are working behind the scenes to spoil what they fear is a third-party spoiler that could destroy President Biden's re-election chances. Well, they are not going to like this. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. explaining who he thinks is the biggest threat to democracy.
I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. President Biden has done something that no other president in history has done, which is to order media, particularly the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Google, to censor his political opponents. And, I can say this because I just won a lawsuit in the Federal Court of Appeals now before the Supreme Court because he began censoring me 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to defend the Constitution.
But Hillary Clinton doesn't seem fazed by RFK's campaign or his comments. She's busy scolding voters who don't like Biden. She wants them to just suck it up.
But it's Biden versus Trump.
Yes,
we know that.
It is.
What do you say to voters who are upset that those are the two choices?
Get over yourself. Those are the two choices.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? And
good.
It's kind of like one is old and effective and compassionate, has a heart, and really cares about people, and one is old and has been charged with 91 felonies. I don't understand why this is even a hard choice, really. I don't understand it.
Harold, when she says he really cares about people, the one consistent polling that we've seen, even from the beginning, was that when voters were asked, does he care about issues you care about that are important to you, his numbers on that have been low from the beginning. But anyway, that was just my commentary, really. My question for you is, are Democrats really freaking out about RFK pulling enough of votes away from Biden?
So I think part of the concern is his ballot access in North Carolina. North Carolina is a state that recently nominated a Republican for governor that many Democrats believe is outside, his views are outside the mainstream of many Republicans, let alone Democrats and many independents. And the question is RFK Jr. a threat there because he could take some of those votes? I think that's a legitimate concern. I think that Secretary Clinton, I think she knows Donald Trump as a candidate probably as well as anyone because she ran against him and lost to him. And I think there may be some frustration there. I don't think that the way she described it is the right way to go about this. I think you can't tell voters to get over themselves, although I know where she's coming from. You've got to get out and tell voters why Joe Biden's a better choice. And I think there are a litany of reasons. I talk to it all the time about the economy, talk to it all the time about foreign policy, about funding Ukraine. It's funny, Evan Gershkovich, not funny. We recognized a few days ago, a year anniversary, one of their in-house newspapers, the Wall Street Journal. You realize that President Trump has not mentioned Evan Gershkovich's name? Look it up. It's not something I make up or not something I say with fondness. If you're going to go out and make the case against Donald Trump, don't make it on the lines that we should telling someone that they're silly to even think about voting for him. Go out and explain why you should vote for Joe Biden. And I think there are reasons to do it. And if the campaign and Democrats, my party, doesn't get to that, we're going to find ourselves in a bigger hole come into the summer.
The left kind of lost its mind when he did that interview because there's a void. Biden doesn't do interviews, so there's a void to be filled. And RFK Jr., if I were him, I would just keep doing it.
First of all, Harold, Trump got back tons of American hostages when he was president. When he was president, Harold,
but he hadn't mentioned
more than many. He's probably leaving room for negotiation. He knows how to do this. You've seen the results. Yeah, I watched that on CNN. That was the stupidest interview I've ever seen. So he goes on there and they ask him about who's a bigger threat to democracy. First of all, no one's talking about that. And he says, well, Joe Biden censored me and he's not giving me Secret Service protection. And instead of the host arguing with him or saying whatever she wanted, they bring in a little measly fact checker after the thing was wrapped. And then they say, well, actually, Joe Biden didn't personally censor RFK and he didn't personally deny Secret Service. Okay, so they're saying Joe Biden doesn't have anything to do with the actions that the Biden administration is taking? That's what we're doing now. If anybody talks to me about democracy again, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. Okay?
Hey, what about democracy?
I knew that was coming. No one is talking about democracy. They just did a poll of Gallup unprompted. What is the biggest issue that concerns you right now? Immigration, poor government leadership, the economy, inflation, homelessness, unifying the country, crime. Democracy's like 3%. It's like the ninth thing that the only ones talking about this are deep state cable news contributors and white women on cable news. That's it. No one is talking about that. And even Hillary, he's saying, notice what Hillary didn't say. Hillary says this election is about one man cares and the other man's charged with crimes. What is she not saying? She's not saying who has vision. She's not saying, are you better off? She's not saying about anyone's record. She's not mentioning policy. It's just the one guy cares. And I can argue he doesn't care at all. I can argue the man has no heart. Show me an example of how Joe Biden cares about anything. If he cared about anything, he'd do something. And then all the rest is that Democrat prosecutors are charging the guy. That's how she's framing the election. This is like an episode of Seinfeld, the show about nothing. That's the Biden campaign. It's about nothing.
That's why I would, if I were RFK campaign, I would just be out there every day.
Well, I think he pulls equally for both parties, but he aligns closer to Trump because they're both outsiders and they're pointing the finger at a system that is being weaponized by those in power. RFK and Trump may have have differences in opinion, but they're both kind of united by a visceral disgust for the people in power who use race and identity conflict to keep the rest of us busy so we don't go after the people in power. Hillary, once again, shows how much she hates voters, right? It's like, get over it. It's like she thinks they're deplorable, they're stupid, they're as thick as her ankles. And then, of course, she mentions the crimes, and she's basically telegraphing the strategy. The strategy from the beginning was that we can get him on if we can come up with these crimes, even if they're repetitive and it's really one crime, we can just say it's 90, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And maybe that'll affect the voters. I don't think it is. I think the driving persuasion point for the Democrats will be fear. Yeah. And it's going to be what will happen if Trump wins? Well, we know he was president. And there is a fear of existential crisis, but it's coming from them. It's not when Trump comes into presidency, he's not going to do anything to hurt anybody. He's not that kind of guy. But we remember from 2016 what happened when Trump won. You had people attacking the White House. Trump had to go into a bunker, right? They were forming little armies on the street with funny pink hats. If you think that's bad, wait, if Trump wins, they are going to melt down, especially when you are told that this man is worse than Hitler. So if you stand by and do nothing, right, then you are a collaborator as judged by history.
One of the things on Perino on Politics, which I'm sure you all listen to, but Michael Meehan was my guest yesterday. He's a Democrat. Used to work for John Kerry. He's working on a couple of Senate campaigns now. And he said, I asked him, I said, are you worried about RFK? He says, yes, they are worried. And one of the concerns, Judge, is that younger people, maybe in their first or second election of voting, they don't like anybody. So they might just say, you know what? I kind of like that guy. At least he's not one of them.
He's not one of them. He's different. And he's calling out things that I think are pretty obvious. Look, when Donald Trump, talks about what is going on, people can say, well, he's been the president. He's looking to make sure he gets elected again. But when RFK talks, I think young people kind of look at him as he's interesting. He's different.
Cool.
He is cool. But, one of the things that I think is so insulting about Joe Biden and this so-called heart that he cares so much about people. I mean, you think about it. Robert Kennedy's father was assassinated. Robert Kennedy Jr. is running for president, and they deny him Secret Service protection. I mean, that is not only not caring, that is out and out cruel. And the whole idea of, Joe Biden is this caring guy. Hillary, you never knew what you were talking about, okay? It took him, a year to get to East Palestine? He's a guy who, from Afghanistan, leaves Americans in Afghanistan. He leaves Americans everywhere. There's no cavalry coming under Joe Biden. And then you've got the whole issue of, the crime that's going on. And the fact that, as Kennedy clearly says, is you've got the First Amendment censoring, whether it was in COVID, the run up to the 2020 election, January 6th. Everything is about the Democrats trying to lock up people who don't think like them or shut them up. And, they did everything they could. They not only have indicted Trump 91 times, those are Democrats, but they tried to keep him off the ballot. Okay? I mean, if people can't see through that, then, there's nothing else we could say.